Alrighty, Matt. And we are live.
Fantastic. We're live. Welcome to the Matt Hilton Show. And if you don't know, this is a new format. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. So if you haven't subscribed, if you don't know where to find those pages, it is YouTube at the Matt Hilton Show or the Matt Hilton Show on Facebook. So join live. You can have comments, make comments during the show, and I've got my phone here. So if you see me referring to my phone, it's not that I'm checking messages or anything like that. I'm checking comments that are being made on Facebook. So I hope to see some questions as we interview my fabulous guest today. So today's guest is, I believe, a fourth-generation Texan. She was born here in the Dallas area at Baylor Hospital, as was I. And she has had such an amazing life. And she is here to share some stories. If you're from the Dallas area, you have probably heard of her. She is a wonderful storyteller, and her name is Rosemary Rumley. Let's hear it for Rosemary.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Yes, yes, ma'am. So I want to get into hearing some stories, hearing about your life. But first, we do have a sponsor for today's show, and that is The Tradition.
Oh, the tradition.
Yes, The Tradition. The Tradition is here.
To live,
yes.
A great place to live.
And that is where Rosemary lives, and they sponsored the show today, and just great appreciation for that. And there will be a commercial coming up about halfway through. So stay tuned for that. All right, Rosemary, so, wow, where do I even start? So I would love to start with a story.
Okay.
So tell me one of your funniest stories.
Well, that's not the route I go.
Oh,
I think of my audience first.
Right.
I got into the speech and theater business at age 3. Anybody earlier than that? Here's what happened. In my day, not your day, but in my day, there were expression and elocution teachers. Do you know what I've just said?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you really?
I do.
You know expression and elocution. And these expression and elocution teachers taught kids to speak and act, and etc. My mother gave me expression lessons, and I loved it. Now, there were kids in my class, in my expression class, that hated it. Oh, they didn't want, but I loved it because it gave me an audience, and I gave little readings. I don't see why there must be boys. They're simply in the way, teasing me all day. You bet I'll never marry one. I have my plans all laid. I'm going to stay at home with my children and be a nice old maid. Now, that was funny when I was growing up. Now it's kind of a thing you do. No. Anyway, I loved giving these readings and performing, so muchly so that when I went to high school, when I did get into high school, I was on the debate team and gave senior play and all that. So when I went to North Texas, University of North Texas, UNT, I majored in speech and theater. And it was my field, and I loved it. And when I graduated, I taught speech and theater, and that's my story. That was my training.
That was your training.
Enunciate and project. So that's what I've been doing. And elocution is out of date. There are no elocution teachers, I don't think. They would be called speech and communication, speech and theater.
Okay.
So that's how I got involved, and I'm still involved. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So as far as stories go, is there a story that comes to mind, maybe from childhood, that maybe
I think I just did one. I don't know why there must be No, I was on the stage as a child, took tap dancing. I'm sure a lot of your audience here have taken tap dancing, and personality singing is what it was. And that was just, everybody was in my day, everybody was imitating Shirley Temple. Yeah, and then later on. But a favorite story that comes to mind, oh my gracious, from North Texas or from elocution.
Let's go from North Texas.
Oh,
like
North
when you
Tex-
were in college, what's something that stands out? What's a favorite memory of yours from college?
Well, I had such wonderful teachers in the communications department at North Texas. But see, in those days, it was called speech and theater. And we had this theater teacher by the name of Myrtle Hardy. And if you were very, very good, if you were an excellent performer, you could call her Myrt instead of Mrs. Hardy. And she was an excellent drama teacher. And I'm thinking of one play. Let's go to one play that I did a lot of shows, a lot of plays. But she said, we're giving Death of a Salesman. And deep drama. And I thought, what is there for me in Death of a Salesman? Well, there are only two women's parts in Death of a Salesman, the mother and the prostitute. Well, I knew I wasn't the mother. So she asked me, she said, in your scene, would you mind wearing a black slip rather than a dress? In other words, I'd be in my slip. And I said, oh, anything for a part, of course. And so the word got out that there was a play being given in the drama department and somebody's in their underwear, their slip. So we had large crowds, and that was always a favorite show of mine, the prostitute. I did one very well. I always had the comedy roles. We had a professor at North Texas, some of you might remember. We called him Fesser. Professor, we called him Fesser. Fesser Graham. And he had a band, the lab band from North Texas, and a Saturday night stage show. And of course, I always wanted to be on that Saturday night stage show. And I'd hang around in case somebody didn't show up, an act didn't show up, I could go on. And Professor Graham often said to me, stand by, Rosemary, the juggler hasn't arrived yet, so you may be able to go on. And my husband was the drummer, or Jack Rumbley at that time, was the drummer in Fesser's band, so that's where I met my husband backstage. And we were married, oh gracious, over 50 years, and he always drummed and I was always acting. We had 2 children, and they're actors, performers, entertainers as well. So that's the way it worked out.
So
Yeah.
Rosemary, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 10-year-old self
What
about life?
Well, you have to do what you want to do. Now, see, I was very fortunate. Dallas Baptist University opened, and they needed a speech teacher. Ta-da! And I happened to be sitting on the front steps. Do you need me? And so I became eventually head of the speech and theater department at Dallas Baptist University. Well, I would have these, I gave plays, presented plays, produced plays, and some of the young men that were playing the leads in my plays, their fathers would come to the show and ask me. Now, these fathers were attorneys, bankers, doctors, lawyers. They would say, what is my son gonna do with what you just taught him? In other words, how to act. And that would be the furthest from their hearts and minds for that son. They want him to be a banker, an attorney, and here he is, an actor. And I'd always say, you better let him do it now, because he enjoys it and loves it. He'll be fine. And no one suffered from being in one of my plays. They all, as my mother would say, turned out good. He was an awful person, but he turned out good. That would be my... So my students were majoring in theater and speech, but they turned out good. They were able to make a living, doing very well. Not in speech and theater always, but in public relations, speaking. Many attorneys, I have a lot of attorneys and a lot of bankers, because I taught them to speak. And that's a good trait, a good profession, a good art to have.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Jack.
Oh, yes.
So,
Jack Rumley, the drummer.
The drummer, yeah. So during your 50 some odd years of marriage, like what's a great memory that you have with Jack?
Jack played for the musicals and the symphony, and he played a lot. He was always playing, and he worked. He was a working musician. He actually made a living as a musician, and so that was good. But what happens to old musicians? Now, he had one of the greatest comebacks on that, when you're too old for the symphony. And he was a drummer now, and he played those big kettle drums. Everybody said, what is timpani? Your husband played timpani? I said, those big drums. He was a guy that stood in the back forever, and then he'd come forward and then stand back. And he was a drummer. Well, he grew older and was unable. He said, it's time for me to retire from the symphony. So he left the timpani and went back on playing drum set, and he got with us a band that played for senior citizen dances. So that was always his response. What are you doing now? What happens to old symphony players? They join a band and play for senior citizen dances. And it was wonderful. Yeah, it was a good deal. Had a good time doing that. So that's what he did.
Fantastic.
Played drums. Yeah.
And outside of acting and all of those things that you've spoken of, is there anything else that you like to do for fun?
No.
No?
Well, no, not really. We were very devoted to another thing that happened. I was blessed, put it this way. The Lord's blessed me. There was a lady that came from Europe, escaping the misery of Europe, and Armenian. She was Armenian, and her name was Ermance Rejabian, Mrs. Rejabian. And she and her husband escaped the miseries that were cast upon them by the Turkish people. They wanted Turkey, the country, to be totally Muslim, and so the Christians had to leave, and that would be the Rejabians. And they came to the United States. This would be right at the early 20s. They came to the United States, and Mr. Rejabian went into the Persian rug business. The company has just now closed. It was a very good situation. And Mrs. Rejabian began to tell her story. People said, tell the story of your life and how you escaped from Europe, et cetera, et cetera. And she began to tell these stories. And the first thing you know, all these clubs came to be. How many of you in the audience there are Rejabian clubs? And if not the Rejabian, another book club. Yeah, the book clubs evolved. Well, that was perfect for me. My word, what work I had. I didn't even know I was going to do it, but suddenly I'm giving book reviews. And that was so good for a speech maker. And I enjoyed that. That was just a great situation for me. I was very blessed. Now, the book clubs are not as strong as they used to be, but I called myself part of the golden years of the book club in Dallas, Texas. But I'm still speaking, as you can tell.
For sure.
Tell us about paper
Yeah, Paper Moon.
Oh, well.
How did you get that role?
Well, I belonged to Actors Equity because the dinner theaters, that's how I got into equity. Dinner theaters came. As I said, I was blessed. Here I was looking, where am I going to act? Dinner theaters. And they are professional, so I had to join Actors Equity. So I had an equity card, which is a coveted thing to have in New York City. There are actors up there still struggling for an equity card. I got one in Dallas, Texas at the Country Dinner Playhouse. I didn't even ask for it, I just got it. So I was on the stage, but the movies, now they are, they're SAG-AFTRA, they're Screen Actors Guild, American Television and Radio Actors, and that's another life. And Peter Bogdanovich came to Texas because he loved the stories of Larry McMurtry. And I forgot now, what's the name of the one the great one? The Last Picture Show. There we are. Thank you. I'm depending on my audience more and more. The Last Picture Show. And Peter Bogdanovich was a total success, won the Academy Award, everything, in a black and white film. And he thought, I'm going to come back to Dallas because they've been so good to me, make another black and white film and cast the entire film in Dallas, which he did. And I had an agent at the time. She said, get down there. He's looking for everybody in that movie. Paper Moon was just a little bit slow, you know. So they were looking for the Texas accent because we can sound real dumb if we want to. She said, go down there and turn on that Texas accent. He's looking for dumb people. And I said, okay, and I went in, you know, howdy there, I'm here. And he called me, Peter Bogdanovich called me and said, we need an aunt for Tatum O'Neal. Brian O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal were starring, father and daughter. And the aunt is an old lady that's dumb and with a Texas accent. You're perfect. So that's how I got the part. And it was filmed in Hays, Kansas, of all places. And I flew to Hays, Kansas, and way out in the country, I opened that door. Come in, darling, we're gonna get you a piece of pie. So that's how that started. And then there were other great movies, such as the Roy Rogers comeback film. Roy should have stayed gone, yeah. But he came back for this film entitled Macintosh and TJ, and that was filmed at the 4-6 Ranch out in Guthrie, Texas. Anybody from West Texas? And then let's see, there was another film.
Broken Promises.
What now?
Broken Promises. Broken Promises?
Broken Promise. Oh, well, that was a film for television. See, then in the meantime, television began to make their own movies. And that was made at a orphanage here in Dallas. I played the orphanage keeper. The mean old lady that took care of the orphans, yeah. Broken Promise. And there's another movie with Jimmy Dean. Jimmy Dean should have stayed in Sausage, but he came out and made this movie. And I play an old lady, and that old lady from the farm, you know, howdy there, Jerry. Jimmy, how are you? So anyway, that's my movie career. But I did make commercials, too. They were fun. Yeah, if they needed someone in a commercial, like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good business in Dallas, yeah. The commercial business. It was called the jingle business. They had jingles, because they sang jingles on the radio and television at that time. They don't do that anymore. There's no television, radio jingles. But the jingle business was big in Dallas as well. So I was very blessed. I'd be standing somewhere, quick, We need you. And that's a blessing. Yeah.
Who is someone that you met during your life so far?
Besides Ryan O'Neal.
Besides Ryan, yeah. That stands out that you were like maybe awestruck or starstruck?
Well, I thought I was very, not awestruck, but I was very pleased to meet Burton Gilliam, who was in Blazing Saddles. Mm-hmm. And then he was also in Paper Moon. And he was a Dallas fireman. And just happened to be in the right place at the right time and got all these great movie roles. And Burton is dear to me, and well, anybody that I ever worked with, worked with, yeah. I just always appreciate people and what they can do, what they mean.
Most definitely.
Tom Hughes, now there's an interesting character, promoter of the Dallas Summer Musicals, producer of the Dallas Summer Musical. I met him in a classroom at the University of North Texas. We were both 18 years old, sitting next to each other. So I met him that one night. People say, how'd you get in the Dallas Summer Musicals? Well, I was sitting next to Tom Hughes in my freshman speech class, and we just sort of grew up together. And Tom was very fortunate. He worked for Charlie Meeker, who had the musicals at that time, and then when Charlie retired, Tom got the job. And he remembered his good old buddy, and he'd call me for these roles in the musical. I played Aunt Eller in Oklahoma. They never gave Oklahoma without me, because Aunt Eller with the churn. Mm-hmm. Oh, and they redid the music hall. That was in 1973, right in there. They totally redid the Dallas Summer Musical Hall. And we were the first show, Oklahoma, that's Oklahoma, da-da-da. That was the first show given in the new auditorium. And the first person on the stage in Oklahoma is Aunt Eller with that churn. She's all alone out on the stage. Curtain goes up. And then Curly sings, there's a bright golden haze on the meadow, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That first song by Curly, she's churning. Well, that new roof that they just put on was leaking. It was raining hard rain opening night, and it was leaking, and I can just, here's Tom Hughes still. Rosemary, move your churn over to where that's leaking. We don't need that water on the floor. Drip, drip, there's a bright golden haze on the meadow. So lots of great experiences. And the time the guy didn't come in on the bidding scene, there's a bidding scene. They bid for lunch baskets in Oklahoma. They bid. And the bidding scene is stopped by Judd's entrance. Well, Aunt Eller, me, I was holding the bidding. What am I bid for this basket? What am I bid? 2 bits, 4 bits, do I have 6 bits? Well, then Judd comes in and stops the bidding. Well, he didn't come in. So
Did
we
the
had
bidding
to
go on?
And bid. Yeah, what it's called. Ad lib. We were way up to $24. I don't know when he finally walked in, and we said, "Where were you?" And he said, "Oh, I had the best bridge hand I'd ever been dealt." Oh. So, if you think actors are sitting around backstage thinking about the audience, they're not. They're playing bridge. And if you've ever looked down in the pit of the orchestra, it looks like a reading library. That whole bunch is reading down there. They're not sitting there absorbed in that show. They're sitting there waiting for their next cue.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, thank you for sharing so far.
Sure.
Everybody stay tuned for a word from today's sponsor. And you don't want to miss the next half, because the next half, this guest knows more about Rosemary than probably anybody living right now. So she has some stories to tell as well. Stay tuned for a word from our sponsor.
I have several friends who are really interested in moving here, and I would tell them not to wait, honestly, because I think earlier the better, and you're not by yourself. A lot of them are single females that need to really understand that it's just so much better to be around a lively bunch of people who have a lot of fun. And I would say that this is a great, great property to live in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Matt Hilton Show. If you've paid attention to the first half or watched the first half, you heard some amazing stories by Rosemary Rumley. And joining us now is one of her daughters. Jill Beam is here. And Jill, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yay, Jill. Yay.
Yay, tradition.
I love your dress, and she does have a special performance that she's going to do at the end of the show for us. So stay tuned for that as well. You know, I was talking to your mother, and she had some things that she wanted to say, and I want to ask you, what is a story about your mom that you can tell on your mom? And you know that, do you have anything?
I have a lot of stories.
Oh, I'm sure.
In fact, I have a book that's at an editor right now as we speak, and the book is titled Growing Up Rumley, and it'll be released in April, because everybody tells me or asks me daily, what is it like being the daughter of Jack and Rosemary Rumley? Oh. And I tell them it's like a 3-ring circus. You know, and I describe it with the word fun, fascinating, unusual, and never a dull moment. And it was so, I'm very blessed too, because being their daughter it's just been wonderful. Mother blessed me with being able to take lessons like piano and singing and baton, and not elocution, but I was in her speech and drama class. Mm-hmm. I was in my father's band at David W. Carter High School, because the Dallas Independent School District, when you're in the 3rd grade, that's when you have the opportunity to choose an instrument, whether you're going to choose an instrument or not. And so my brother, Phil, who's a very talented musician, and Tyler, my dad sat us down, and he said, okay, it's now time for you to choose an instrument. You will go to North Texas and you will major in music. So those were pretty tall marching orders. And I told my dad, I said, I want to play the drums because I want to be just like you, Daddy, because he was so wonderful. And Mother was in the kitchen overhearing the conversation. She goes, oh, sorry, only one drummer per family. Oh. But I chose the flute, and I'm so glad I chose the flute, because the flute has one case, drums have multiple. And, you know, it was just fun growing up. Mother, when we were young, I was born in San Antonio, Texas, actually, at Brooke Army Hospital. My daddy was in the 4th Army Band, and his first teaching job was in Alice, Texas, way down in the valley. Okay. And so Mother kept us entertained while my dad was teaching at Dubose High School. And our mode of transportation was on a bicycle. We were a 1-car family, so Mother would put Phil in the little basket up front and me in the back. And one of the things she always enjoyed doing was taking us to the movies. And but constantly, Mother would remind us that kids, you're going to have everything you need, but you may not get everything you want, because you are products of educators, and educators are poor.
That's right.
So one day Mother said, well, kids, we're going to go to the movies. And we were so excited. And Mother said, but you're not going to like it, because we're going to go see the movie Giant. I want to see the movie Giant. And Mother says, if you'll sit like bumps in the movie theater, after the movie, we'll go to the Dairy Queen and get a dip cone. A dip cone was a big treat, because a regular cone was 5 cents. A dip cone was 10 cents. So we got on the bicycle, and Mother toodles us up to the movie theater. And of course, we walk in, and what's the first thing you smell when you get to a movie theater? You smell popcorn, right? And Phil walks in, my brother, and says, Mom, I want some popcorn. And she says, now remember, you're products of educators. And then I responded by saying, but Mother, I'm thirsty, I want a Coke. And she paused and she said, swallow hard. So that quenched the thirst.
So I would think, growing up a Rumley, there's a fine balance between being in a shadow and being able to express yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
How was that balance within your family.
And a lot of people have asked me that. How do you feel, you know, being this daughter of this famous person, and Daddy as well, you know? But because when unfortunately Mother had a fall on January the 19th, and that was kind of the end to her book reviewing business. So I took over her book reviewing business as best as I can, because nobody can talk 2 hours about a postage stamp and make it hilarious but her. So, you know, all the book clubs would say, well, Jill, you know, we need a bio to read about you. And I said, just tell them I'm Rosemary's baby. You know, it doesn't bother me at all. You know, one thing when I was in high school, of course, when my dad was my band director and Mother was head of speech and drama at Dallas Baptist, I also attended Dallas Baptist, so I could be in all her musicals. And you know, it was kind of funny because being in the band, sometimes you're labeled as a band nerd. And so to not be a band nerd, you have the alternative to audition for a majorette. I wanted to be a majorette so I could wear a cute little outfit and not have to wear the band nerd outfit. And so my father was always the judges for all the majorette auditions, and he goes, oh dear, if you're going to audition, I'm going to have to hire judges from, you know, far off, because otherwise your classmates will say, well, the only reason you got to be, you know, majorette is because your dad's the band director. Same thing happened when I went to Dallas Baptist. I wanted to play all the roles that Mother played, because Phil and I live backstage. We know every line to Oklahoma. And we know everything. We know every Fiddler on the Roof, you know, The Music Man. Those were her musicals that she primarily, and she gave them at Dallas Baptist. Well, I wanted to play the same roles. And Mother always auditioned everybody, and she goes, oh dear, I'm going to have to hire judges from Timbuktu to judge you. But fortunately, I landed all the roles because I knew all the parts. So it's been fun. I never was at a loss for lunch money in high school and college because I had parents there.
So if there's one thing that you could do, that, you know, if you had to go back, if you didn't have, you know, the mom and dad that you did and the influence that they had on your life, what do you think you would be doing now?
Gosh, I hope I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I don't know. Well, when I was little, I remember I told my grandmother, my father's mother, I said, I want to be a nurse. And the reason I decided I wanted to be a nurse was, do y'all remember the Fuller Brush Man? Yeah. Well, he was always kind of handicapped, you know, and I told my grandmother, I said, here comes the Fuller Brush Man. I want to be a nurse so I can take care of the Fuller Brush Man. You know, I don't know. I don't know what I'd be, but, you know, I certainly do enjoy what I do now. And like I say, I've been very blessed and to have such great parents too. They were encouragers, and of course they're both, you know, Christians, and we were brought up with a strong Christian faith, and so it's been great ride.
That's fantastic, and the ride is still going.
It's still going.
Yep.
It's still going.
For sure. Rosemary, I want to ask you that same question. Have you ever thought about if you weren't an actor and
No. Now remember, 3 years old, and I don't see why there must be I never had a chance.
Nothing else. Okay.
Nothing. No.
And when I was 3, you enrolled me in dance, and every day I'd come home and say, I want to do my dance. I want to do my dance. So, you know, I was kind of destined because it was in the genes.
It was in the genes, for sure.
Yeah, in the genes. And of course, you know, another fun story, if we have time.
Sure.
Mother was always the judge. No, not the judge, the MC for the Ms. Texas Senior America pageant. Since 1995, a lady by the name of Mary Frances Hanson called my mother and says, Rosemary, I'm giving a pageant for senior citizens. And mother says, oh, are you calling me to be a contestant?
Of course.
No. I'm calling you to be the MC because you know so many people, and in order for a pageant to survive, you have to have people to come. So 1995, Mother was the MC of the Ms. Texas Senior America pageant. You have to be 60 plus. You compete in 4 categories: philosophy of life, interview with judges, talent, and evening gown. And I, as a kid, I always wanted to be in pageants. And this goes back to what Mother told us at a very young age. I was 8 years old. My dancing teacher says, I'm giving what's called a Little Miss pageant. Go home and tell your mother, fill out this application. I filled it out. She goes, don't forget, Jill, you're a product of educators. We can't afford for you to be in that pageant. But anyhow, and then this is what she also said. And she goes, now, I hate to say this, but some of those pageants are fixed. They've already selected the winner before they happen. Well, being raised a happy kid, I thought, well, if I lost, I'd be very unhappy. So, long story short, fast forward to 2015. I turned 60 and I was able to enter the Miss Texas Senior America pageant. And I won the title of Miss Texas Senior America in 2015. And when you win the title of Miss Texas Senior America, thank you.
Yay!
You get an all-expense-paid trip to Atlantic City, New Jersey, where you compete for Senior America. 50 contestants, very strong competition. And I got into the top 10, and my husband comes running down the aisle and says, your mother has been ringing my phone off the hook. You've got to tell her how you did. Called Mother and said, hey, Mother, guess what? Out of 50 contestants, I made it to the top 10. And there was a pause. She said, you didn't win? And I said, no. And she said, see, I told you those pageants are fixed. So there you go.
Yeah. So as we wrap up before you give your performance, I want to ask a few questions as far as a person that you would like to meet that you haven't met yet who is living.
That's living.
Who's the person you'd like to meet?
I don't know.
Foster herself?
So, well, there you go. Thank you, Mother.
Okay.
Thank you for prompting me on that. I would love to meet Sutton Foster, who is a Broadway star. She just closed The Music Man with Hugh Jackman. And January 15th, 2023, I did not get to go see her. Mother and I used to go to Broadway all the time. And that's where I learned, the talent that I'm going to end the show with. Sutton Foster sings in this Broadway musical called The Drowsy Chaperone. And The Drowsy Chaperone is a frenzy of fun and frolicking, and it's got music from the 20s and 30s. It's based on this guy who sits in the corner with a record player, and he says his favorite musical is The Drowsy Chaperone. And so Sutton Foster appears in this musical as the part of Janet Vandergrift. And the part of Janet Vandergrift, she is a star. And she decides she don't want to be a star anymore because she wants to get married. So she sings this song titled, I Don't Want to Show Off No More. And when I saw Sutton Foster sing that show on Broadway, I told Mother, I said, I don't know where or when, but I'm going to do this song in something. And so I went to my choreographer when it was 2015, and I said, do you know the song Show Off? She goes, are you kidding? That's the greatest song ever. But Sutton Foster does cartwheels, she does the splits, she does high kicks, she twirls plates and all these things when she sings that song. And so my choreographer says, well, Jill, I don't know if you can do all that, but you know what? We're going to pull out all the stops that your mother taught you, enrolled you in to do in that song titled Show Off.
Well, fantastic.
Yep.
That's fantastic. One other question. If there was a place that you could go that you haven't been to, where would you go?
Greece.
You'd go to Greece.
I would.
What is it about Greece?
I think just the history, and it's so beautiful, so
Okay.
beautiful. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any part of Greece? Is it Athens, Santorini? Do you?
Probably Santorini. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
My best friend went, and I'm just, I want to go there.
It is beautiful.
Yes,
it is beautiful
gorgeous.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get you ready to perform. But before I do, I want to ask each of you one last question. Is there something you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
Not really. You're very fine. You're a fine MC. No, really. No. All is well.
Okay, that's fantastic. Jill?
Not really. I
Not really?
think we covered all the bases.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't feel like we had a lot of time, but that is our show for today. And Jill, if you will get ready, and we'll cue up the music, and Emilio will let you know when you're ready. And
Okay, well,
here we
this is Sutton Foster's Show Off that I did for my talent, and of course won the title of Miss Texas Senior America, and it was so much fun, and I thank my choreographer Amy Kay for teaching me this song. So I'm ready when you are.
Now, you're not going to hit us in the head with the
Nope.
baton.
I might. There it is. I don't want to show off no more. Can we have more sound? I don't want to sing tunes no more. I don't want to ride moons no more. I don't want to show off. I don't want to wear this no more. Play the saucy Swiss Miss no more. Blow my signature no more. I don't want to show off. Don't try to control me. I've made up my mind. And that's it. I quit. I'm leaving it all behind. I don't want to be cute no more. Make the gentleman hoot no more. I don't want to wear fruit no more. I don't want to show off. Whee! I don't want to show off. Whee! I won't hit you now. And I won't hit you off. I don't want to change keys no more. I don't want to strip tease no more. I don't want to say cheese no more. I don't care if you scoff. I don't want to be cheered no more. Praise no more. Grab no more. Touch no more. Love no more. I don't want to show off. Whee! No more. Thank you. You're welcome.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rosemary, Jill, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, our pleasure.
Enjoyed it, our
such
pleasure.
a pleasure. And for all of you that are tuning in, and real quick, I would be remiss if I did not thank the studio audience for being here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank the Tradition again for sponsoring today's show and for bringing our guests today that are in the studio audience. And just as a reminder, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Matt Hilton Show Facebook page. And y'all stay tuned to next week, because next week we're going to have another fascinating guest with an inspiring story. Y'all take care. Bye.